All right, day 2 on van work. Unfortunately, I should have done more work yesterday because it was in the mid 50s and pretty nice yesterday, and today it's like 33 and blowing like hell out there. So I'm in the garage. I've actually had the heater running for a bit, so it's pretty decent in here. But basically what I'm going to try and do today is get the inside of the fender flares painted with truck bed liner and the outside painted with the blue, so they're ready to go onto the van. I'm not going to do that today because they're going to need to dry, and also it's blowing and cold out. But at least I'll get the flares prepped and ready, and then that'll all be ready to go on. All right, I scuffed all these. I cleaned them with the prep, masked the inside, shot them with truck bed liner. I basically had enough to do one coat for each of them, and then the can ran out. So I think I'm going to go back in. I think I'm going to get another can and put a second coat on them. Partially because at the very end it wasn't going on very well. But it's a good start. The outsides are all prepped also. So once this is dry, I can go to painting the outsides. They're not going to get primed and shot. They're just going to get shot with the blue. I know that's kind of a hack thing to do, but these are probably going to get sanded right back off again when I repaint the van. So I'm not going to do a ton of prep to them to just give myself more layers I have to sand off later. But it's incredibly nasty in here, so I need to get out of here. So I'm going to go buy more truck bed liner, and I'm going to buy some pop rivets, and then get back in here for this. In case you're wondering why I taped off my really nasty welding table, it's because truck bed liner is not only gross, but you don't want to get it anywhere near a weld because it's basically plastic. So I figured it was safer to just keep the welding table clear of it. Alright, I went and got stuff and then got in a groove and forgot to start filming. But those have gotten their second coat of truck bed liner. They're drying right now. I went and pulled this off the van because I realized I had to paint the brackets anyway because they were raw steel. So I figured I'd pull this off and paint all this stuff that was exposed metal, because I bent a bunch of the brackets and stuff so the paint on them failed, though I realized I didn't actually prep this one as well as I should have. I'll give that a quick scrub. But yeah, scrubbed it real quick with a scuff, hit all the spots that are bare metal with self-etching primer. This and those are going to get the blue on them. It's going to be a quick and dirty job because it's not permanent. These are going next to the blue that's already got a pretty significant orange peel. This is going to be underneath the bumper, but I just want a little more consistency on them. If I hadn't scratched up the ends so much, I probably wouldn't have cared. I would have just very carefully painted the chipped paint that's not visible. But since I scratched the hell out of both ends, what the hell, shoot it all with blue, since I'm going to have the blue out anyway for that. This still wet, so I think I'm going to go chill inside for an hour, let all this stuff dry. All right, and now to paint these blue. So I realized something that makes my life so much easier was I thought I was going to have to mask the inside, but I realized if I get blue overspray onto the inside where the truck bed liner is, I don't care. That's an easy touch-up. All that mattered before, which is why I masked it before, was I didn't want to get truck bed liner on the outside because that would be impossible to usefully get off. So what I need to do is give these another quick scuff and clean, because I think there was just enough truck bed liner in the air that there's tiniest little bits of it. Either that or it's the gray primer, one or the other. So these need another clean and another scuff and another clean. That centerpiece needs another clean. And then these are going to get shot. I think I'm going to stick a piece of metal or something under it, just tip them up like this, just to make sure I'm getting that edge properly. And then that'll be good. I have the paint warming over here in front of the heater. Don't worry, it's been there for like a minute. It's not going to stay there long, so I don't have to worry about it like catching fire, exploding or anything. But I'm going to clean these, make sure the prep is all good, get them all situated, and then bring the paint over. Mix like 2 ounces maybe. That's probably going to be too much, but I think that's about the smallest amount I usually can mix. And then I'm going to shoot these. Compressor, sorry, that's going to be the noise. But that paint on them, it didn't go great. I don't like that gun. First time I used it, I discovered you have to keep it lean to one side to get paint to feed in. So that affected a lot of it. So that made my life miserable. And there's also just an absurd amount of dust on this, even though I wiped it off repeatedly, including the second before I started. The room's just clearly too dusty, but I put a lot of paint on, so if I really want to later, I have enough material to sand out the worst of that. But I got color on them, it went on pretty good. It's not great, but it's not terrible. Same on this. I kept moving, I had so much paint, but I kept trying to find new things to paint to use it up. I literally had to go get the scale out of the kitchen because none of my measuring things went down small enough to be useful. So I ended up using a kitchen scale. Fortunately, it got cleaned off, so I could bring it back to the kitchen without getting in trouble. But yeah, it was alright. It wasn't great, but it did what I wanted, which is to get blue on. And it didn't do a horrible job of that. It's not a great job, but it's not a horrible job. Now, these are gonna dry for a good long while. I just realized I think I bumped it right there at the last second. But these are going to dry, and then tomorrow, I think, assuming I have time, these will go on the van again. I'm going to leave the heat running for another little bit so they have the best chance of flashing off properly. All right, new day. And these are painted. A lot more dust in them than I'd hoped. This isn't too bad for dust. These are terrible for dust. And it occurred to me after the fact that what probably happened, because of the fact that this is way less than this, is that these are plastic, and the act of sanding them and then rubbing them down and whatnot, I probably put a bit of a static charge in them, which made all the dust want to stick to them. But, oh well, whatever. Once the paint's had a chance to cure, I can try and sand the worst of this out if it bugs me enough. Obviously that won't be for a bit because it needs to have a really good cure on it before you start wet sanding into it, because this is a single stage paint. So these are ready to go on. This is ready to go on. I picked up this. This is just vacuum line. What I'm going to do with this is slit it and put it on the back edge of the bumper. So where this is rubbing up against it, it won't immediately take the paint right back off. That's part of why I painted this, was because I scratched the hell out of it. These are going to get installed with this stuff. It's a peelable weatherproof sealant. So what I'm hoping is that I can use it to seal the inner edges here so that it can't trap water. But when I take these off to do the paint work, to change the color of the van and everything, which theoretically is happening this year, this should be much easier to remove than regular seam sealer or whatnot. Once the van has its final paint, these will probably get put on with seam sealer to really seal them up, but this should be more than sufficient for that. So the next step is these need to get fitted up and have holes drilled for the pop rivets, and then those holes need paint. The pop rivets that I bought ended up being steel. There they are, because they're the only ones that had a nice big flange, and I was afraid with a smaller flange these could just easily be torn out of it. So I'm actually going to be painting the pop rivets as well to give them the best chance, and then they're going to get painted again once they're in place. But yeah, so these all need to get some paint on them. These need to get their holes drilled into the body, and then those holes need to get paint on them. And then while that's drying, I'll probably install the front lip, because that doesn't need any new holes drilled or whatnot. So let's get to it. so that's now on for good. Brackets are painted, it's been repainted. I slit the vacuum hose and ran it along the lip of the bumper to keep it from scratching that, but it looks like I might only need a piece over there and a piece over there. If it starts to drop off, I'll redo it and just put those pieces at the ends. But for now, that looks super great, and that's all set. As far as these side skirts, this one's just got 3 rivets stuck in it temporarily. I needed to figure out exactly where some things were for measuring the other side, but it's all the holes have been drilled. They've all been sprayed with paint. So this side is ready to be installed. Same on this side. This side I also had to finish drilling the holes for the mud flap. I also painted the mud flap brackets so they'd stand out a little less. So over here, all the rivets I've shot with paint inside and out, just again because they're steel rivets, I want to give them a little bit better chance. So I think these are dry now. These are still a little bit tacky. Once these are dry, because they're the last thing I painted, I'll be able to assemble everything together. All right, ready to start installing this. Got my rivets, got my sealant. I tried taping this off so there's just a small ridge, so in hopes I can wipe the sealant off more easily. No idea if it's going to work or not, but it's worth a shot. So let's get going. Fortunately, apparently these rivets are too much for this gun because the whole end of the gun has bent to hell and now won't grab a rivet. Or it'll grab, but it won't do anything. Like if I put it on, this is a rivet I've done nothing on yet. Right. It doesn't pull at all. So I need to go find another rivet gun. This stuff is miserable because I expected it to have some adhesive qualities, like even just be tacky, but it isn't. It has no adhesion whatsoever. So I don't know how much it was obvious in the video, but trying to get it on was miserable, and I don't know how much survived the installation process. So yeah, I'm gonna have to go find a rivet gun and then continue. All right, back with a beefier one. Unfortunately, I think all this stuff's dried, but I don't know that I can get the one that I put in out. I think I'm at fuck it stage, and I'm gonna crank all these down and see what it looks like and then decide from there. Wait, no, what am I doing? I have more pop rivets, so if I cut this one out, I can redo this. Unless the rest of them are stuck too. You know what? No, I guess I'm just gonna have to crank this down and deal with it, because all these are stuck. So, all right, well, whatever. We'll put you back on time lapse. Okay, so the basics of fender flare plus mud flap looks cool. Unfortunately, we've had some major fails here. The first one was the paint was definitely not cured enough because the tape left imprinting all over it. Second was this stuff that I used was a absolute disaster. It's like, I don't know if you remember rubber cement, but it's kind of like the little rubber cement snot balls after the rubber cement is dried, but never with an actually adhesive step in between. So it's just kind of nasty. I think since it doesn't stick to anything, I think what I'm going to do is let it dry and let this paint dry a little bit, and then come in here and see if I can get it out with something, and then put some better sealant in there, and just deal with having to remove that sealant later, because this stuff's horrible. But I mean, at least it's got the flare on, and at least the flare in the mud flap looks cool. It's a little piece of tape too, right there. That's gonna be fun to get back out. A little piece of tape right there. I'm gonna shut the camera off. I'm gonna get that little piece of tape out. I think I'm just gonna do the other side without filming it, because it's gonna be the same thing you just saw me do, only less and more frustrated. All right, everything is together. I also cleaned the wheels and gave them a quick rinse off. I've got to take it somewhere and wash it, or buy more. I don't have any soap, but whatever. This side's all on and installed. I used way less of that temporary sealant stuff because of how it's now just being used as basically a buffer against vibration scraping the two pieces together, and also against water intrusion from the inside. But I'm going to do something to seal that opening. I don't know what yet. But I like the look a lot. This side ended up with some scratches. Apparently the thing fell over in the wind and I didn't notice it until it was laying on its face. But this side looks much better. It doesn't have the problems with the tape and everything. But I love the fender flares. They look exactly the way I'd hoped they did. They actually stick out further than the wheel, which amuses me, after the wheel's been the thing that's been sticking out. And the mud flaps are friggin' amazing. Those are great. I love those. So yeah, overall, very happy with this. This side, if you look closely, you can see the issues with the paint, but it's not immediately obvious, so it looks good enough. Mud flaps there, and then in the front, you've got the lip. I still haven't wired up the fog lights. Having a hell of a time finding a relay. That's something I expected to just be a thing I could pick up at the auto parts store, but two different auto parts stores had none in stock. I don't know what that noise is. So in a quick break between noise over there, I'm going to call it there. Thank you all very much for watching. Talk to you later. Bye.